Hi, Princess.
Hi, sir.
Well, we are going live here on YouTube with a bunch of our friends. We are doing episode 52 of Dom Sub Devotion, and we're doing it live. So, for those of you listening later, you're catching a replay of a live stream that we are doing to celebrate a year of Dom Sub Devotion.
It's hard to believe it's been a year already.
We've been through so much life in the last year that this has been one of the very few consistencies in our lives over the last year, is sitting down every week and recording these. So for those of you who are newer here, and there are a lot of people who are new to our platform, we're just going to tell a little bit of the story of Infinite Devotion and what we did before we had a podcast, and how we started reaching out to people, and kind of how it's set our whole path of infinite devotion on a really different trajectory.
Can you just pause that just for our people who are listening live? If you do have questions for us, you are welcome to bring those into the chat and we will address them.
Yes, 100%.
As we can.
Yeah, please leave your questions in the chat. We will come back around to them a little bit later if we don't answer them all on the fly. But, when we first started Infinite Devotion, well, this business became Infinite Devotion in 2022.
Okay. I didn't really remember when that was switched over.
Before that, we called ourselves freeandfit.life. There might be some of you here who were a part and around back when we were called freeandfit.life, before Don got a little sassy one night and put #collared on a Instagram post and kind of changed the whole trajectory of our lives.
Yes. Do you want to go into what we even started that as?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to share what I remember, because at the time, I don't remember when that was started, but at the time we were kind of looking to blog about fitness and probably future RV travels,
Mm-hmm.
and relationships, freedom, love, kind of in a somewhat separate but all-encompassing page.
Yeah, kind of like an authentic reflection of our overall lives as they were and as we were kind of evolving.
Yeah. So you are the amazing writer. So you had started putting out some content, just little quotes, and I think a little bit about our relationship, but also we did some fitness stuff.
Yep.
At the time. So it was already established as a page on that Friday night.
Yeah. If you scroll back far enough in Infinite Devotion, you'll see posts tagged, the first probably 150 of our posts tagged as freeandfit.life.
Yeah. So that was the night that I put the picture up with #ColorGirl. And that's really what started getting found.
Yeah. And people started coming out of the woodwork asking us about our Dom sub relationship, because I think as they found us through that hashtag and started scrolling back, they saw that you were wearing a collar in all of your pictures going about day-to-day life. And for some people, that just blew their minds.
I'm sure it still does. In public.
So then we kind of started talking more about our relationship and our Dom sub dynamic at that point, sharing more about it, what it meant to us, how we were growing and evolving in it. And it became pretty obvious that the thing that people were the most interested in hearing about from us was this relationship. So we started in December of 2021, we started brainstorming new ideas for what we could call this, because freeandfit.life really didn't feel like it fit anymore.
Nope.
And interestingly enough, if you are trying to start a business on the internet in the 2020s, it's tough to find a name that nobody else is using, much less a name that no one else is using, that also you can get the domain name for it and the Instagram username, which is why we are underscore infinite devotion on Instagram, because the regular or just straight infinite devotion was taken by someone who wasn't even using it.
Yeah.
So when we found this, it turned out someone else owned, this is just an interesting little piece of the backstory. Someone else owned infinitedevotion.com, and they had not paid the renewal on it. And so it was like going through the expiration process, and seeing that combined with the fact that we loved the name and the fact that it looked like we were going to be able to get the domain name of infinitedevotion.com, it kind of just all landed and fell together and felt right.
Mhm.
So it was January of 22 when we officially rebranded.
Yeah. And I love the new name.
I love our new name, and it fits everything. And for those of you who have seen our Infinite Devotion logo, interesting also part of the story is that I started trying to make a logo online. I started trying to look on Fiverr and some other graphic design websites to hire somebody to make a logo for us. And
Because we knew kind of the elements of what we wanted it to be.
yeah, the infinity symbol to somehow incorporate the collar, yin and yang. And one of our followers, Robert, I believe his account name is Sleek Blackened, volunteered to make one for us. And he sent us what we use now as our logo. And it's beautiful and we love it. And it was still probably one of the nicest, kindest gifts we've ever gotten. So thank you again. If you're out there, Robert, if you happen to listen to this.
Yes. I was so impressed and thankful because it just I couldn't have came up with that myself. I had no idea how. And it was like this idea came to life through someone else. And it was just so cool. So yes, thank you, Robert. I appreciate it.
Someday we're going to have a nice sign made for our studio someday when we have one.
Yeah, I have this thing kind of coming in my head, but again, I'm not that kind of creator. And so I kind of have the idea but I don't know the textures that
The materials
like what that could really be. So
now,
if
if you
you have
wanted it scrapbooked, you could kill it.
not really, because I would need like this die cut machine that I don't even have one of those. I never have.
right.
I really don't want one. But anyway, if you have ideas out there, I would love to hear them because mine are pretty basic in creating art, but I want that right there.
So as we started to grow as Infinite Devotion, we had a couple of really pivotal moments, like a couple of podcast interviews that we did, one with Lee Noto, one with Sophie Josephina, that really put us on the map with a lot of people. And we continued to post a lot on Instagram, but that was the only social media that we were doing. And it's tough to portray the depth of the things that we talk about in 2,200 characters on an Instagram post. It always felt like the biggest limitation. And as much as I enjoyed writing our blog posts back when I used to write more of those, we didn't have a lot of people that found them.
No.
Because for better or for worse, a lot of the content consumption has moved to video and audio versus the written word. So that's how we eventually came to decide to start a podcast a year ago now, right about now. And when we started it, we called it the Infinite Devotion Podcast. We changed a few months in, I changed the name to Dom Sub Devotion. because I noticed as we started, nobody was the people that we wanted to find us weren't finding us because when people search to learn something about dominance and submission, they search stuff like DS, Dom Sub,
Yeah.
24/7, and Infinite Devotion wasn't telling them what we were talking about. So that's why we eventually then changed the name to Dom Sub Devotion, and it's been that ever since.
Yeah, and back to kind of why also we started this, you have done more of the writing on our account, and I enjoy speaking about my experience a lot more than sitting down and trying to write. Like, I th I'm so open to, like, that creative side, but it doesn't feel like it's me.
Yeah.
It's so easy to be with whatever wants to come out of my mouth, not my pen.
Yeah, and it really did help to give your voice more of an expression in our business and what we do. And that's, really a big part of why starting this podcast has completely changed the trajectory of our business has been because of you and because of how beautifully articulate you are about your experience. And I don't know of another place on the internet or podcasts where people can go to hear someone so eloquently reflect the emotional experience of submission.
Thank you.
And the first thing that, well, before I go to that, when we started this last year, we were sitting here in these red chairs in this room, and we did our first 5 or so episodes here.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
We pre-recorded them and then we loaded up, because for those of you who are newer here or don't know us, the last 2 winters we have been snowbirds. We live in Minnesota, and we have been leaving here in October since
Mhm.
we now do this for a living, and we can leave here and we aren't tied to an office or a job. We've gone to warmer places for the last 2 years in our big, like, House on Wheels 5th wheel camper. Traveled for half of the year. So we recorded the first 5 episodes here, and then we fucked off and went south and got out of here before it got cold.
Yeah, that's right.
So then our background shifted, and we were in our camper home for the next 6 months and 20 some episodes before we got back here this spring.
And we don't have much more in these red chairs.
We don't. That is the other really fun piece of our life that we haven't shared much about yet.
Yeah.
And we'll probably talk a little bit more in depth about it a little bit later, but we are about a month away from putting these chairs in storage along with all of the rest of our stuff and going full-time nomad, moving out of our home and out of the hometown that Donna's lived in basically for her entire life.
Not hometown, area.
Yeah, same general area that you've
Yeah.
lived in since you were born. 8 miles down the road from the hospital you were born in, and
Yep.
you haven't gone a whole lot farther than that outside of our last 2 winters.
I haven't yet.
So it's fun to be here telling this story now, because freeandfit.life, the original name of our business, was in part going to be talking about the plans we had way back then that we were going to do this.
Yeah.
And now, a month from now, we're doing this.
Yeah, and for a while, we really didn't know if we were actually gonna do it. It was more so a decision, earlier this year, I guess, after doing it for 2 winters.
2 winters.
Mhm.
Yeah, we made the official decision after a second winter and realizing we really enjoyed ourselves.
Yeah. So this will be a different style because this is more traveling, whereas the last couple winters have been going to an area and staying in a general
Yeah.
area farther south where it's much warmer.
So, yeah, the number of episodes in the red chairs, for those of you who are regular YouTube watchers, our red chair episodes are going to be winding down fairly soon. We're recording a whole bunch of them right now, so we have a little bit of backlog to
Yeah.
kind of help with the time period when we're moving and traveling. But yeah, the red chair episodes are numbered. We'll be back in the RV episodes.
Yeah, the red does not match in the RV,
No,
in the camper, unfortunately. It just is
these will
not
not be
the
making
color.
the cut. They won't be making the entrance into the.
I've thought about it so much because I like the color because it matches our logo. But I just can't switch over the camper to the reds. Mm-mm.
This is my decorator.
Yeah, kind of. I haven't really done much.
So, what has the evolution of this been like for you? Doing this podcast now for a year, because you've grown a lot in how articulate you are and expressive. Neither one of us had ever done anything like this.
No.
We'd never done anything even remotely like this. So there was a big learning curve on the tech side for me to figure out how to make it all happen. Like most of our life, I set this up so you show up, sit down, and don't have to think about or plan much. But you've had your own evolution in this. So what's that been like for you?
Well, it's been a lot of fun for me to just feel real in who I am. And, I've said this so many times in different expressions, but it's like you don't know what you don't know. And so when I only knew my own limitations and I only knew the level of confidence that I had in life. And I would always look at other people and be like, wow, they look whatever, so
They've got it all
confident.
together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember doing that a long time ago because I became a mom at a young age, and my neighbors were much older, well, fair amount older than me. I don't even remember at the time, but I always looked at them and admired them and thought that they just had life all figured out, and they just were so comfortable in who they were.
By the way, it's fun watching you squirrel off and watch how you're going to find your way back to the question.
I'm talking about confidence and just being comfortable being on a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So there wasn't a lot of nervousness for me, but I have grown in my confidence. Doesn't even feel like quite the right word, but I guess just my own authenticity. And when you're connected to that, the amount that you consider someone else's opinion or if they like you or not like you kind of doesn't matter. And if you would have told that to me a while ago, I would have been like, I don't know about that. I don't know if I can believe that, but it's true. We get a lot of support for what we do, but then once in a while we get the people who think we're crazy.
Yeah. Well,
and that's
more
fine.
And more, the bigger this gets, the more of that we get, just because our reach is expanding so much.
Right. And so, even though I know the comments are all about someone else, whether they're supportive or not supportive, even like I love hearing the benefit and the value that other people receive from us. But like the comments that come in that someone thinks I'm crazy because I wear a collar or whatever, I'm just like, oh, cool, thanks, whatever. And so that still applies to my ability to express myself and speak freely about anything and everything through the podcast. And so I would say the video part of it was probably the most challenging for me over just the audio speaking. Excuse me, my voice is getting scratchy.
Yeah. I've heard this statement before that if you don't have anyone who hates you, you also don't have anyone who really loves you. Like that's polarity. It's when you're a
Yeah.
polarizing figure, you're going to upset some people to the same extent that you're going to have other people who really love and appreciate you. And as we've grown, I've definitely noticed the content of the comments that we get. We get way more, like we still get way more supportive, kind comments than we do like negative ones.
Yeah.
But we have had the negative ones pick up more. And for a long time, I had our Instagram limited where you could only comment if you were a follower to kind of limit some of that. The people who were just scrolling through and saying stupid shit because who knows why. Like somebody the other day saw one of your reels about wearing a collar, about how much you loved wearing your collar. And he said, I wonder if my dog thinks that highly of his collar. Which is really funny, actually.
It is. It is. So thanks for the laugh, whoever you were.
Yeah. I don't know if you were trying to be funny or you were trying to be mean, but
Yeah.
either way, it was a good laugh.
Yeah. But that kind of stuff does not bother me at all.
One thing that surprises people is that we don't listen back to our podcasts after we record them.
I've only listened to the one.
Yep. I think that was like number 3.
Something like that. It was one of the earlier ones.
Yeah.
And I cried at listening to myself. It was an interesting experience because I actually was like, wow, I saw myself from a different aspect. I don't like when watching yourself back, you see yourself from everybody else's view in a way,
Mm-hmm.
like to the extent that you can. And I just I cried. It was really interesting.
Yeah, that was fun. We might have to actually go back and listen to a couple of these again sometime.
That's what I was going to share is I still, after most podcasts, I'm like, was that good? And you're like, yes. And then I hear the reels and I'm like, oh yeah, that was really good.
I've watched you grow and evolve so much, like I said, just in your ability to articulate your experience. And I know how valuable that is to so many people because they tell us. From my side, holy crap, the amount of stuff I've had to learn just to pull off this podcast every single week for a whole year. And then also, as we've grown, I've worked to make it better. We added these microphones a few months ago. So all of you who are listening, you can hopefully hear us nice and crisp and clear. And I remember the first time you heard the recording of yourself using this microphone, you said, is that what I really sound like?
In a good way.
Yeah.
Because I don't know. I think like what I hear in my head and what I think I sound like, it was like way better on the microphone. And you're like, no, that actually matches your real voice. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, that's what you really actually sound like. Everybody remembers that first experience they had as a kid with the little, in the 80s, you had the little tape recorder and you would record yourself and listen back, and that first experience of like, that's not what I sound like at all.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that, but a really different experience when you hear yourself through higher quality audio equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the amount of learning that I've had to do, video editing, audio editing, yes, there's been so much. And that will continue to be a new challenge as we try to bring this whole show on the road, as we live as full-time nomads now. There's a whole different set of challenges to pulling this off, including, fingers crossed, Starlink is going to be our lifeline to be able to run this business from every corner of the United States.
Yeah. But you are so intelligent that you have a gift of being able to figure it all out.
I am also very resourceful, and yeah, we'll find a way to pull it off however we have to. It might mean sometimes that we're doing live stream podcasts in a truck, in the cab of a truck, if we have to drive to get to cell phone service, and we can live stream from a phone. But we will pull this off, and we will keep it going.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been fun.
I mentioned a couple times how starting this podcast a year ago has really changed the trajectory of our business. We had on Instagram a year ago, we had about 12,000 followers. And in a year, we've grown there alone from 12,000 to almost 35,000. We've almost tripled our Instagram followership in the last year, in large part because of this podcast.
Yeah.
And we didn't even have a YouTube channel a little over a year ago.
Right.
And that has grown to 3,000 subscribers. So for all of you out there, we are just so incredibly grateful to you for being here and caring enough to listen to what we have to say. It really does mean everything to us.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't be here without you all. So
You almost pulled off another y'all there.
I caught that. I mean, we would be here, but you are an essential part of our business too. So
Yeah. This really has also challenged us to think more deeply about our connection in how we can articulate it. Because we have lots of long rambling conversations together about what we're going through and what life has been like, or what life is like for us. That's kind of a part of our day. But
yeah, because we spend a lot of time together.
But that's another thing that this podcast has really done, is it's helped us bring clarity to what we're experiencing, because we only can share authentically from our experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, one of the comments we get more now as our reach has expanded and more people find us is, why don't you talk about XYZ, like the way that I do this? Maybe that's like, why don't you talk about female doms and male subs? Why don't you talk about this? Why don't you talk about that? And we had almost no one who asked us that a year ago. But now when you put probably close to 60 hours of podcast conversations out there over the course of a year, you get a lot more people listening and seeing you. And my answer to that question is always the same. It's, I don't know. I don't know anything about it, because we don't live that experience. Some people do, and they have a great time with it. And I'm sure I'll tell people, I'm sure there's a huge audience. If you want to start a podcast or social media and talk about and share your authentic experience, there's a whole massive audience out there that would love to hear about it. But we can't talk about things we don't know.
Right.
And I think there are a lot of people who are in different angles of power exchange dynamics than how we do it, that still, and I know there are a lot of them who follow us, who listen to us, and then they take the concepts and then they apply them in their own lives in whatever ways it works for them. And by all means, we just can't talk about things that we don't know anything about. It wouldn't be authentic, and authenticity is a very important value for us.
Always.
So one of the reasons that things have really gone so crazy for us over the last year was that Dawn went viral last year about November or so. Not too long after. It was one of the first episodes we recorded in the camper. A little clip of Dawn went to like 700,000 views.
Was that the overthinking one?
No, that was the one where you were expressing your gratitude for my patience with you as I continued to show you the way without being excessively pushy.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there was something about that little clip that resonated, and that was our first experience of having anything go really kind of blow up way beyond our following. And I think, like I said, I think that one now is at like 7 or 800,000 views. And we've had several other ones do that over the last year. It took a while, but it wasn't until this summer that I actually had one of me take off. They were all of you. I wonder why.
I wonder why.
Actually a little funny side note, going back to the earlier days of when we were starting this, a lot of this, the foundations or the first people who found us, the way that we used to publish content for the most part on Instagram was a picture of a pretty girl wearing a collar, and then in the caption we would hit them with the depth,
Yeah.
the meaning. So people would kind of come for the pretty girl picture and then realize that there was something much more there.
Yeah, the collar definitely stands out.
So we are pulling up roots in about a month. We're going to set off and travel and be homeless.
Yeah. Well, houseless. I say houseless because my home is wherever you go.
Oh.
I'm not trying to be cheesy about it. It's the truth.
I've been planning for and wanting to do this for so many years. We've reorganized our entire lifestyle. Now, I'm not talking Dom sub lifestyle here. I'm talking our overall life and lifestyle. How much we have set ourselves up for this and how much I've planned for this for a long time. We
Yeah.
kind of realized this just the other day. It was 10 years ago, which was only 3 years into our marriage,
Mhm.
that I kind of recognized where we were at in terms of the realities of your kids being the ages they were and everything that was happening with them, that it was going to be a long game to get to a point where we could then someday go and do our thing.
Whatever that was, yeah.
And I knew that to get that when we got to that point where we are now, where they're kind of off on their own, that I wanted to have our lives set up from a business and financial standpoint to be able to have the option to do what we wanted to do.
Yeah, more freedom for sure.
Yep. So it was way back then, 10 years ago, that I started laying the groundwork for what we get to do in a month, which is to have the freedom to just go and explore and live freely.
Yeah. And again, like I said earlier, we didn't really know if it was going to come into fruition that way, but we were definitely open to lots of different options. But this is the one that definitely started to feel right earlier this year. And I felt ready for it. And probably, I think we will share more of what the last few months have been for me because it's been a lot. And I knew going into it, it was going to be a lot of um, emotional stuff, but I had no idea what that really meant. And I still have a month. A month of tears and excitement and everything in between.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have a couple of episodes coming up over the next several months where we kind of dive into the kind of the process of pulling up roots for you and what it's like in the being here and getting ready to let go. And then we'll probably do another one sometime after we've been gone for a while to
Yeah.
reflect back on what has changed.
Yeah. It's been a lot, but a lot in a good way. A lot of things that are happening for me.
And by the way, packing up your house for to leave and to go travel when you're putting the things that you're not selling into storage is a completely different experience of packing than just packing up to move to a different house or apartment.
Yeah.
Holy cow. It's like you've got to go through everything and sort everything and box everything and pack it well.
And think about climate changes,
Yeah.
the extreme heats and the colds and what can be in there, such as my candles. I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe these shouldn't be out in 90 plus degree weather. I don't know. Would a candle melt in that? I have no idea. I don't want it to wreck anything else. So we'll see.
Yeah, there's a whole new set of, because we don't know how long our belongings are going to be sitting in a storage facility.
Right.
It could be a year or two, or it could be 10 if we're really having a good time.
Yeah.
So as we travel, one of the things we've talked about, and I'm sure we will do some of this to some extent as we're going, to let our followers know where we are so that hopefully we can meet some of you sometime out on the road. I was looking at the chat. I saw somebody mentioned having us come to Virginia. We definitely will be coming to Virginia. It seems like we have a lot of followers in Virginia.
It's been a theme.
It's been a big theme.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
we've had a lot of requests that we show up in Virginia. So I think next year that area is on the checklist or on the list of where we're going to be going on our route.
Yeah.
So it'll be fun as we do that to come meet some of you folks and put out some invites just to have people show up and introduce themselves and say hi. And
I hate to tell y'all who I just did it. Who
Deanna and Krista are both on here. So
Oh
you
my
guys just
gosh.
caught a live y'all. Don,
I don't know why that's happening now.
you're getting ready to go. So I have to tell this story. Dawn hates using like doing things that people would expect of her.
Well,
She doesn't like being put in boxes. And so when we went south the last 2 years, she's intentionally avoided saying y'all just because everyone in the South in the US says y'all. She didn't just want to start saying y'all to fit in, right?
that's it. Like, I'm not doing it just to look like something I'm not. So it is coming naturally, which is so bizarre because we're in Minnesota right now.
There have been several y'all slips out of nowhere, and you guys
It's
just heard one live.
It's so funny. I don't even know if it happened when we were down south. So I don't know. Anyway, we aren't going to make it overseas, at least anytime soon. That's not our plan. So we aren't going to get to connect in person with those of you in other countries. But if you come to the US, maybe.
Another thing we've been asked, a part of why we started this podcast also is because we kept getting asked, do you have a podcast? When are you going to start a podcast? You should have a podcast. And didn't have the skills, the time, the knowledge, the expertise to be able to pull it off at first until we now have for the last year. Another thing people have asked us a lot is to do some sort of retreat, get together in person thing, and that would be fun to try to pull off at some point.
Yeah, if there are things that you would love us to do or share or whatever, like, we love hearing from you. So if that's an interest, please share it
Yeah.
because it helps us, I don't know, brainstorm and
Mhm.
create and see where life can take it all.
Yeah. The contact us page on infinitedevotion.com is probably the easiest way to get us. If you have something like that, our Instagram direct messages are overwhelming. We are at a stage now where we are probably in the hundreds per day of direct messages that come in, and we just can't even see and reply to all of them anymore, which is kind of sad, but it's also just one of the realities as this has gotten bigger.
Yeah.
So yeah, as we travel, it'll be fun to meet more of our followers. We've done it both of the last 2 winters when we've been out traveling. We've gotten to connect with and meet some people in person, and I know we'll end up doing that again more as we travel. So
Yeah. I look forward to it.
yeah, we kind of like people.
Yeah. I can't read the chat from here at all. And I'm kind of bummed.
I think we're going to have to pull it in a little bit closer and maybe turn our chairs so we can answer some questions here
Yeah.
for people.
Yeah. My eyes don't work quite as well as yours.
I do have the better vision. Dawn got LASIK. That was a Christmas present I got her several years ago, was LASIK. And so she does have laser vision, but
yours is still better than mine.
another thing that we would love to hear comments on is things you would like us to share on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We've managed to go a whole year coming up with ideas, conversations, things to talk about. That was one of your concerns at the beginning, is how are we going to find something new to talk about every single week?
I know. It was.
And what we've found is that even the things we've talked about before, because we're always growing and evolving and changing, we can come back to the same topics, which we haven't really redone anything yet.
No, but also just through working with a lot of different people, we can see into a lot of different relationships and be able to deliver content that we see other people struggling with and where to go deeper. And yeah. So that's something we get to draw from too.
Yeah. And in our coaching practice and in the courses that we offer, there's always new things that we're learning that other people are experiencing that then we can draw from to teach other people, because other people have different experiences than us. And we learn a lot about ourselves through the conversations we have with people that we work with too.
Yeah.
So let's turn our chairs so we can face the folks. And as I do this,
excuse us for a moment. All right.
This is our...
Can you scroll it back?
We got to get us here. There we go. So there we go. Thank you for bearing with our studio adjustment. Yeah, if you have other questions for us, please put them into the chat. We're going to take some time to answer a few and look back through the chat here. And I'll just give a big blanket thank you for all of these congratulations. And I love seeing some names that I've seen here for ever and ever that have been some of the very OG followers of us. And then some people saying an absolute newbie. So love that. Yeah, this one comment in the chat says, I found you through looking up DS. I'm so glad you're a voice for this dynamic because there's so much out there that's unhealthy. That's really an interesting thing that we didn't touch on today, but we do get asked a lot why we don't talk about kink, because it's almost like this expectation that Dom sub, we should be talking about kink, posting pictures of you not wearing any clothes, and
You got to pay for that.
we haven't gone OnlyFans yet.
No, I'm kidding.
But it was a conscious decision that we made a long years ago, that we wanted to share and talk about the relationship side of dominance and submission, because that's what wasn't out there at the beginning. It's what we
Right.
didn't have when we started this. There was no resource for how to do this inside of a loving relationship. And that's what we really set out to do. So the reason we don't talk about kink, the kink side of this, isn't that we don't have a kink side of this to our relationship. It's because that's private between us, and there's also lots of other places to learn about that side of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we really do want to help people be able to experience these dynamics in a way that's healthy and in a way that's loving, and also lets you have all of that fun kink experience in whatever way it works for you.
Right. And taking this outside of the bedroom into the relationship is the most challenging part for people. And also, it's, to me, just super fun to help people succeed in that and to hear their wins and successes. And it's just been really rewarding to be able to share from our experience and help other people with it. Oh, I keep turning my head to talk to you.
That's okay. Somebody asked, who said a little bit earlier that she was brand new here, how did the Dom sub experience begin? Who brought it to the relationship? I dropped this on Dawn on a date night back in November of 2018. And she didn't know it was coming, and she certainly didn't know what the hell I was talking about.
But we did kind of a whole episode on that.
Yeah. The first,
so you can still find that.
Yeah, episode 1 was actually called From Vanilla to DS, and we told
Okay.
a little bit of that story. So if you want to go all the way back to a year ago,
We go in more detail there.
Yep, absolutely.
Someone said, y'all is in the dictionary and is valid for Scrabble. Oh, good to know. Thank you.
Are there apostrophes on the Scrabble board? Or do we just get to skip that?
You just get to skip that, I think.
Oh, that's right. We did hear from someone that you don't have to use the apostrophe because it is just its own word.
Sure.
Again, thank you all very much for the congratulations. You know, a really important part of all of healthy Dom sub dynamics, I'm just looking at the back and forth here from a question in the chat about if a submissive should be able to ask for a night off from sex. And in the way that we see this, always the submissive needs to be able to use her voice. But in a bigger picture, having protocols for healthy communication and open communication is an important part of a healthy dominant submissive dynamic. And I'm going to take a brief detour here to give a little commercial for a course that we are releasing this week. It's called Structuring Your DS Dynamic. And it's a course that I have built to teach dominant submissive couples how to set up things like rules, rituals, protocols, tasks, how to write a contract, how to hold each other accountable, including how to hold the dominant accountable for his actions, and a whole bunch of other stuff that is really geared at helping couples set up a structure for a healthy DS dynamic. That course is going to be released this week. And if you go onto our Instagram account or infinitedevotion.com, you can add yourself to the wait list for that. We're going to give away a free copy of that course when we release it this week, which will, the date is still not officially determined, but it will be before Friday, putting the final touches on it. But that course is going to really, really be helpful for helping a couple work together in communication to figure out how we're going to handle things like, what do we do when the dominant wants something and the submissive doesn't feel up to it? A part of this course is I've written 7 conversation guides. Before you get into talking about things like rules, rituals, and contracts, it guides you through 7 different deep conversations to have, deep and open conversations to have outside of the Dom sub dynamic as 2 human beings, to discuss what all of this means to you, what you want out of it, what your needs are, what your limits are, and to have those conversations even inside of a healthy, well-structured, and well-organized communication. So really excited for this course, and I think we have almost 200 people who have signed up on the wait list for it, so we're really excited to share that with all of you. Very happy to answer any other questions that you might have for us. Would love an in-person event, a live tour of the US. Yes, we are going on tour. We're going on permanent tour. We're going on tour for so long that we're going to give up our house.
We don't have a tour bus. We have a 5th-wheel camper.
In-person retreats would be fun. Marriage retreats. Yeah, we could do even something just for married DS couples.
Someone says, how tall are you, Dawn? I am 5'7". And thank you. She says, I love your style. Thank you. Actually, I'm 5'7.25". I don't think I've shrunk yet. But I never add the quarter because I don't really get particular about that. But today I did.
And I know you didn't ask, but I'm 5'1".
Nope.
Somebody asked, have you ever thought about writing a book? Yes. And the challenge with writing a book is the amount of time that it takes to write and edit a book with everything else that we do. I want to, and I would love to, and I've got so many notes for a book. I haven't yet had the time to really sit down and start intentionally writing for it. But I do still have notes of lots of things that would go into it and will go into it someday when I get around to doing that.
Yeah. It might be you. It might be a joint effort. Time will tell.
That is a great, great question. Someone says, communication's always been a problem for me. Following you two, I've seen my communication skills vastly improve, and my sub has noticed and mentioned several times that she sees the improvement. Beautiful.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Another question, Andrew, do you think a person can be taught or made into a Dom as a Dom? I think all dominant men are made. No one is born this way. We can be born with the desire or the inclination for the kink and even for being in this kind of a leadership role. I think most men, just because of testosterone, have some sort of a drive to be in a leadership role. But to cultivate the inner strength that's necessary to be able to hold the emotional space, to be able to stay present, to be able to lead and take charge, especially with the amount of responsibility that's required inside of an every moment of every day kind of relationship, it takes growth. And we hear women ask all the time, where do I find a man Where do I find a dom? Where do I find a dominant man? And increasingly, the way I answer that question is you don't. You don't find someone who's already a finished product. You don't find somebody who's already got it all figured out. You have to grow into this together. You have to, including going through all of the bumps and all of the collapses, and then staying committed to each other to grow through the pain, because you're going to face pain in undoing all of those old programs, all of the conditioning and the beliefs that you came to not just absorb, that you came to believe so deeply that you will defend your own beliefs even when they're wrong. So you really can only grow into this with two people who mutually desire it and are willing to go through the struggle. Somebody actually, no surprise here, one of our most ardent and wonderful and most appreciated followers knows how tall I am and gave it up in the chat.
Clearly you've said it before, or was that just a good guess?
I know I've said it before.
Oh, okay.
Someone says, as a sub, I have thyroid problems. Wearing a collar is hard. Any alternative ideas? Go on Etsy and search for day collars. There are so many ideas of necklaces that can be made into collars. We are an affiliate with Eternity Collars, who makes this, which you can't really see behind Don's microphone. Don's regular everyday wearing collar. This is a titanium collar that's not very tight. It's not tight at all.
It doesn't touch my neck. Like, it doesn't push on my thyroid at all.
And you can even just get bigger sizes of those that would not be tight, not even as tight as this is, if you wanted to.
Or a diamond necklace sounds beautiful too, as a collar.
Really, it isn't so much about the collar as it is about what it means to you.
It could be a bracelet. It could be an anklet.
Yeah, Eternity Collars.
Could be a ring.
Eternity Collars makes bracelets and anklets that are out of the same material and look just like this titanium collar that Dawn wears.
Yep. Any interest in a true posture collar? I love the collar episode. Is that black one technically a posture collar?
They called it a posture collar. There are, I think, like anything, there are levels of intensity. So there are some that will really force you into having a straight neck.
That's not me. Don't restrict me that far. I need to move and flow.
I wouldn't want her too tense. Dawn, what tips do you have when you feel yourself acting out of your wounded masculine?
If you're catching yourself in the moment, say it. Call bullshit to yourself. Which is very vulnerable. If you catch yourself after, again, express it, because you are a human being and you have every right to go there. That's part of the process, because we can't know the light without the dark. We can't know what it feels like to be in our feminine and to be in our masculine without like the contrast. And it's going to be a process. It's going to be a dance of going back and forth. And that's all okay. The important thing is that you accept that part of yourself and accept that part of the journey. Can you love the protection that you're in, that has been there, that is your wounded masculine? Can you love that piece of yourself? too. And like I said, be vulnerable and share it. And, have some compassion and acceptance and love and forgiveness for yourself. Because there's no perfection in this except in the moment of being real.
That wounding, in the phrase wounded masculine, that wounding is born out of a resistance to the truth. And by resisting your wounded masculine, you are perpetuating the same thing that causes it. And if you want to heal from it, it's counterintuitive, but you have to truly accept it and be okay with it and welcome it, get to know it, because you can't change anything that you're wishing wasn't there. You're just trying to run away from something and you will never get away from it. So accepting it, valuing it, seeing what it's there really to do for you. How is it trying to protect you? How is it trying to make some part of you feel safe? What are you getting out of it? Find that, value it, appreciate it, welcome it, and that's how you counteract that energy of resistance. That is the reason that wounding is there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Another question, Dawn, what is the biggest positive you see in your life that has come out of this lifestyle?
I've actually fallen in love with the real me and feel a sense of freedom and peace in every day that I didn't even know existed. And there was a point where I didn't even know if loving myself was actually real, if it was even possible, or I had no idea. And through him seeing the real me underneath the facade, and just deepening into who I am, I feel like sometimes I just need to pinch myself because it just feels like a life experience that I never had before. So my whole life has changed.
All right, one more here. What's one of the main or the most important qualities you appreciate in each other, given your choice to live this dynamic? That is a really, really good question. For me, it's the fierceness of Dawn's heart. The way that there is no suppressing how she feels anymore. Her willingness to trust herself and me enough to speak up, even when speaking up feels harsh, when it feels overblown, when it feels out of alignment with the moment, to continue to express herself, especially when it's hard. That ability to overcome and really, I guess, zooming out even just in the general quality, it's the willingness to confront discomfort in search of truth and in a desire to follow me.
I want to speak, but I feel like I want to look at you, but I don't know how this microphone picks up. So I'm going to try to do it this way. For me, what I deeply appreciate about you is something that I've always seen in you, and not seen, but also felt, is that unconditional love and acceptance of everything about me. I've never, ever, ever questioned how you feel about me in that way. And on top of that, your connection to God consciousness and truth, and your unwavering dedication to living in it, in connection with love and truth.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other part of that question then is, how about the quality you appreciate the most in yourself?
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Perseverance, which encompasses both patience and direction, knowing where I'm going, knowing what's right, and never giving up. I said a little bit ago, as an example of this, I've been working towards what's happening for us here in the next month for 10 years. 10 years of commitment to getting us out of debt, 10 years of commitment to changing the way that our lifestyle was going before and unwinding the path that we were on and setting a new path. The perseverance in making this relationship everything that it can be. I think that has been, for this dynamic, for this lifestyle, it is that patience and perseverance has been the most important thing for me.
For me, what I love most about myself is my love, my heart, and everything that involves at a soul level and at a sexual level, at my existence. And it feels free to be itself now in a way that I didn't even know before. I've always felt like I have this depth of love in me, and I have felt judged for it, but now I am so confident in all of who and what I am as love. And it's been so incredible to watch that grow for you, when it's like, how can it continue to grow? But it does, for every part of you.
Every time we do a live podcast, I have a blast with it. We will do more of these. I love this last question. Any plans for Infinite Devotion apparel? And then someone else says merchandise. If you have ideas for what kind of merchandise that you would be interested in from us, we're certainly open to the ideas. But like a coffee mug just kind of seems a little bit. Although we do drink out of Yes Sir and Sir coffee mugs every day, so maybe there's actually the idea is the Sir and Yes Sir
with the Infinite Devotion logo on the other side. That's what my next coffee mug needs to be, is Yes Sir with the logo.
All right. You've given us some ideas, folks. Thank you.
But please share what you would love with us, because we had talked about that in the past, but it kind of just, I don't know. We didn't really know what to do with it. So
one of those things like the book that never, it's been on the list. It just has never made it to the top of the list. So
yeah,
you've given us some great ideas. Thank you all for tuning in. For those of you who stayed all the way through, I know we've had a lot of you coming and going tonight, and we really, really do truly appreciate you. And we thank you. The life we get to live and the fact that we get to talk about this with all of you and make our living doing it is so special. And we really, really do owe it all to all of you. And we thank you. We're grateful. And we will see you for the 2-year anniversary episode this time next year.
Yeah, I echo all of that. So thank you for being here with us. We deeply appreciate all of you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you soon.
Bye.